How did you find your way to college admissions?
I worked with the Upper Bound program. I did volunteer work there and started to connect with students. And they were, Upper Bound, for those of you that don't know the federally funded TRIO program, Upper Bound, the goal is to take students who may not have the means, because in order to be in that program, you have to be first generation college, and your family has to be under the poverty line. And it takes those students and introduces them to college and things like that. So I was now in this academic role and being an academic role model. So that was kind of, and I had some fantastic mentors. I mean, I can't stress the importance of mentors enough. And I had some fantastic mentors that really forged my professional life. At that time, when I was only 19 years old. So I started volunteering with them, and then got my first major summer job with that organization. And I wound up working with that organization for 19 years as a result of that opportunity that they gave me back when I was 19.
Holy smokes, that's amazing. Okay, I just want to point out that clearly the sun is shining where you are right now. It looks like the sun is coming through your window. You've got a halo. You look like, like Jesus.
That is true. That's not the sun. That's a halo. I really have a halo.
So you got the halo effect. I love it. So you worked for Upward Bound for 19 years, which is essentially, as you shared, you have to be first generation and a number of other things to sort of be part of that program. Now that certainly serves as the on-ramp for many students to finding their path to college, et cetera. And so now I want to switch to, my book is called Tips, Tales, and Truths for Teens. And so I like to ask our guests, especially those who are in college admissions now, what is, sort of your best tip, your best tale, and your best truth? And you can start anywhere you'd like.
Sure.
But share with our listeners, maybe, do you want to start with your tale about a student?
I'll start with the tale about, well, no, I don't want to start with the tale, because the tale gets me to Evergreen. And so that's a little bit farther down the line. What I'd rather do is start with my tip, because my tip comes from Peter Johnson. Did you ever come in contact with Peter Johnson?
Yes. Oh my word. God rest his soul. Peter Johnson.
God rest his soul.
I was at Vassar College as a newbie, and all of the seasoned veteran, Diane McCoy, Peter Johnson, and I can go on, Rob, others from, oh gosh, who am I thinking of at Harvard? Anyway, Peter Johnson, yes, of Columbia University, who has it been a couple of years?
It's been several years now, probably 5 years or so.
He passed, and it was tragic. So Peter Johnson, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So Peter Johnson, I was on a panel with him. I was working at Lemoyne at the time in the admission office, and I was on a panel with him, and something that he said to me, even though I wasn't working for an Ivy League school, something that he said stuck with me. So I use that as my tip no matter where I go. And then that tip is, if you're applying to a very prestigious or very selective program, make sure that you look like your application and your application looks like you. And what he meant by that is that if you're going to tell me that you want pre-med at Columbia, you had better have some activities in pre-med at your high school, some volunteer work, some quality experiences to show that that's really who you are and what you want to do. So that tends to be my tip. Make sure that your application reflects who you are and what it is that you want to do. If if you don't know what it is that you want to do, that's fine too. And there's other tips for that. But if you know that you want to be a doctor, you want to go to that direct entry nursing program or that direct entry engineering program and those kinds of things, your application needs to reflect that, or else you're just not going to be successful in the process. And coming from somebody who is at an Ivy League school, that makes a lot of sense.
That makes perfect sense. Oh my goodness. And I can't remember which module you were a guest. You've been a guest for us on Dream College Academy a couple of times, but we talk about that in module 3 about, what is the evidence? If you're going to say, I want to major in X, what is the evidence in the last, 4 years, in your high school years, but what's the evidence in your life that really shows that in fact you do want to do that? Okay, so that's a good tip, and maybe a combination of truth. So go ahead, you take us where you want to go next.
So unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, the tale is, well, I've got two, so I'll give you one, and it kind of speaks to why I get up and why I do this kind of work, and why I've been involved in admissions and around admissions and working with admissions offices for the lots of years now. And I think about a student that I had named Amato. And Amato was from the Lower East Side, New York City, and I recruited him to go to Lemoyne. And it took him 7 years to graduate. And he would stop out, and I'd be recruiting at his high school, and he'd be right outside the high school, and it's like, hey, you coming back? You going to finish? And ultimately he did. Like I said, it took 7 years to finish a 4-year degree. And that's all he got was 4 years. So, there's no doctor, there's no anything. He was just to finish his 4-year degree. And when we had graduation in Syracuse, we have it at the War Memorial downtown, the whole, the whole block, everything. When we let out, and people are filling out the whole block, he had something like 12 to 14 people from his family, because he was actually the first person to graduate from college in his family. He had younger brothers and sisters. And, and I saw Amato, and I went over and gave him a big hug, and, it's pre-COVID, so remember, wear your mask. Went over, gave him a big hug and everything else. And, I was like, man, I knew you could do it. I'm glad you did it, and things like that. And his grandmother was there, and his grandmother, an elderly Latina woman, kind of pointed at me and said, "You." And I was like, oh boy, here it comes. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I said, I replied, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, you brought all of us here. You're the reason that we're here. You brought my Amato to this school, and now it's because of you that Amato's graduating today. And while I tried to keep telling her, no, it wasn't me. Amato had to come, and he had to keep coming back, and he had to finish. So the work was his. He did it. She was convinced that if it wasn't for me, this would have never happened. And I think about all of those stories of people who I run into the grocery store or in a restaurant, or, I haven't seen them in 20 years, some of them 30 years, because I started working in college admission in 1996. And they will say, "Oh my God, you're Mr. Forbes." And not because I'm wearing my Mr. Forbes jacket, but they just, you said this in class and that made such a difference. You did this for me, it made such a difference. When you think about those, yes, I've chosen careers that don't pay a lot of money, but those stories are the reason that, I might be working with the next Amato today or tomorrow, kind of thing. And that's the tale, that one tale about, the persistence and how important these milestones might be. And as the students that might be listening, when you talk about graduation, you say, well, I'm not going. Your graduation isn't necessarily just for you, even though it's lauding your accomplishment and that kind of thing. Your graduation is for that whole family that, scraped up $900 for you to go to college, or who kept pushing you to finish and things like that. That graduation is for them as kind of proof that you did it, because I think Grandma really wanted proof that he did it.
Oh, absolutely. I know we're running out of time, but did you have a second tale you wanted to share briefly?
Yeah, so the second tale is kind of the shameless plug for Evergreen. Okay. As we talk about what is Evergreen like and that kind of thing. Evergreen is the differentest place that I've ever seen. I've never seen a place where students don't choose a major at all. They don't earn grades. They don't earn letter grades. They get narrative evaluations. They work directly with faculty, things like that. I mean, there are so many weird things about Evergreen that it's the coolest place, but like I said, the differentest place that I've ever seen. So when I went to interview, what we had to do when we interviewed is that we had to wander around with a student who gave us a tour, and then we had lunch. And I had a couple of colleges that this was after ACT, I was laid off from ACT, tried to figure out what I was going to do next. I was looking for something meaningful. I wanted to get back into college admissions. And so I had a couple of places that I was interviewing. At the time I was working at Morehouse in kind of an upper bound type program called SMASH, which introduced students to STEM careers and that kind of thing at Morehouse College, sorry. So I flew out on a Thursday so I could go and do this interview and then make sure that, Wednesday night, so I could be back by Friday morning so I can keep teaching. So I only had one day in town, and I had to interview and then eat lunch with this student. And I don't know about you, but when someone asks, what did you major in college? What do you say? What do you say?
I say I majored in communications.
Okay. When people ask me, I say I majored in political science. When I sat down with this young lady and asked her what she studied at Evergreen, and she was, like I said, she was a senior, she talked about this program that she's been doing in Indigenous studies and how that inspired her to do an independent learning contract that took her to Samoa so she could learn more about her own family and people's background and that kind of thing. That was like the weirdest answer that I'd ever gotten for what do you study in college? Most of the time it's a 1 or a 2-word answer. And I spoke with 3 or 4 other students on that same day, and everyone went through and talked about the courses that they chose and why they chose them and what they plan to do with those. I had never seen anything like that before. I think about, the growth that happens for a student on a regular basis when they go through and they come home for Christmas and they come home, and you can hear the bass in their voice and stuff like that. And you can hear them a little bit more confident about what they're doing. And then I talk to these Evergreen students who are in their first and second year, and they have this idea that they're in control of their education and they choose what they want to take and they justify why they take the courses they take. That was the most impressive thing. And I knew that I wanted to be part of the Evergreen story for at least a little while because of what the students were saying. And so, when people ask, why do I work at Evergreen? I tell student stories because that's the most amazing thing that I've ever seen when it comes to college admissions. And I've been around college admissions, like I said, since 1996.
Okay, you just blew my mind. Okay, first of all, okay. The tip that you gave earlier, you clearly said, and I agree, and knew Peter when I was at Vassar, and we were both working at highly selective institutions. So the tip you gave was know why you want to do what you say you want to do. What you just said about Evergreen students is they know why they are doing what they're doing. And the way you described it, you're right. I don't think I've ever heard the student give that kind of answer. But it's not about what you do; it's about why you do it. Why do you want to do? And so it's shedding some light. So that's incredible. I would be attracted to that as well. So I can see that. Oh my goodness. So I want to just back up because Amado. Oh my gosh, who doesn't love Amado when you tell that story? So if you're still taking notes, parents and champions out there, Carl said there were 12 to 14 of Amado's fans that were there 7 years after he had started on his quest to earn his 4-year degree. By the way, we should say most students graduate somewhere between 4 and 6 years. So it does take some longer, but it took Amado 7 years to get 1 degree. So here's what I want to say, and Carl, just hang on with us and we'll say our goodbyes in a second, but Carl has offered some really great tips and some tales, but here's the truth. The truth is Carl has served as the on-ramp for so many, I dare say hundreds, maybe thousands of students. And yes, it's true, like Amado, got graduated in 7 years. It took him that time. And his grandmother is thanking Carl for doing that. And Carl is saying, no, it was him. But it does take somebody, it does take a moment, a pivotal moment to get on the on-ramp or take the invitation to get on the on-ramp. That's the truth. And once he, she, something happens and you're on that track, that lane, that highway, it's up to you to keep going. So parents and champions that are out there, understand the truth is our job, your job, is to simply be the on-ramp. Invite people to get on the on-ramp, and then they will take the lead and keep going. Oh my God, what beautiful tales, Carl. Those were amazing. Thank you so much for being with us. It was really, and I should note, those of you who are going to watch, Carl had stopped. He's not driving. He stopped. He's in between. He went to a meeting. He stopped here, and now he's about to travel off. So we weren't driving and talking. So just so you know that. Okay, let me just do the closing out of the show. Hang on tight really quickly, and then we'll say our byes. Okay, folks, thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you, listeners, for joining the conversation. We know that you have a busy and full plate, so thanks for spending your time on Destination University. Please, to thank you, I want you to go to the website, Dr. Cynthia Colon, COLON.com. You've got 3 options for a free gift from me, so choose the one that's most appropriate for your teen. If this episode has in any way fueled your confidence or helped build your dreams, please share this episode with 3 people in the next 30 minutes. And if you're feeling extra loving today, hit subscribe and/or write us a review. It sure does help to help other parents find us as well. And remember, you can join the conversation in our Facebook group, Destination University, YOU. It's open to all parents, no matter your teen's grade level. If you found me, you are a parent, a mentor, or an advocate for college-bound teens. So come on over and join the conversation and get the insider scoop. That's all I have for you today, my dreamers. I'm Cynthia Colon. Remember to share this episode in the next 30 minutes with 3 people that you love. I'll see you next Wednesday. Same time, same place, noon Pacific, for another episode of Destination University. Until then, wherever you are, may you have a happy and sunny day. Bye for now. Wave, Carl.
Take care.